You are now joining Children of the Watch.
That's right. It's the #1 podcast in the galaxy for all things Star Wars television. I'm your host, Alex Maxwell, and returning back to the Bad Batch recap is the one and only
Mac Lacey. It's good to be back. Sorry, I've been away for a little bit. I've been keeping up with the show and everything. Just haven't been for one reason or another. Haven't been able to make recording times for this. But I'm here. We made it. So I'm excited.
I'm so excited too. I missed you, and I think everybody missed you. If you're in the live chat right now on YouTube and you're not listening to this in the future, go ahead and type out how much you missed Mac
Please
as
don't
well. Please do that.
Please do not. No, but I'm excited to be back.
Yeah.
And I miss everybody. So
yes.
Yeah, let me know how y'all been doing.
Jonah Marie joined us 2 weeks ago, and then Rick Villanueva from Jam Transmissions joined us last week. And it's been so much fun just talking to people and getting their different perspectives on what's going on with the Bad Batch. And that's, of course, what we're going to do tonight is we're going to go over what's going on episode 7, Battle Scars of the Bad Batch. We'll be recapping everything that we need to know and break down everything that we need to know from that episode and theorize and speculate what could come next with the Bad Batch. But we are also we're going to be talking about the Mandalorian season 3 and the Book of Boba Fett, because there's a lot of news surrounding that. And, that's where we got our start. We were the Mandalorian Watch. Now we're Children of the Watch to better cover the upcoming live action Star Wars television shows. We changed our name. So we've got to talk about that stuff.
Yeah, for sure. I'm excited to just check back in and get caught up, back to speed and everything. So yeah, thanks everybody. So shout out to the patrons on the Patreon. Don't feel like we give you guys enough thanks often enough. So thank you guys for holding us down. With that, I think I'm ready to get into the recap.
I think we're ready too. So let's do this. The episode 7, Battle Scars, the director is Saul Ruiz and the writer is Jennifer Corbett. And it starts off immediately with the Havoc Marauder being chased through space by the Rokai. And this is a mission that we did not get to see. This is kind of like the Indiana Jones, James Bond format of they're coming off of a mission right before their next mission. And their mission seemed to be get this strange lizard, roly-poly lizard thing for Sid's client.
Yeah, it's like a space pangolin almost.
It really is.
With the scales and everything.
Yeah. And they've named it Ruby. I'm assuming Omega has named this Ruby.
Or Wrecker. No, I think he actually comments his disgust at the fact that she had named it, maybe.
Yeah, I don't think he likes this very much at all. And so it ends up attaching to Wrecker's face. And he has this big freak out moment. And with each new episode, I think I'm like, Wrecker is becoming my favorite member of the Bad Batch.
Yeah, just you got to love a teddy bear,
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
He pulls off Zeb better than Zeb, I think. Like, I never connected with Zeb, but I am connecting with Wrecker, and they kind of fill that same role in my mind.
Look, Chewie walked so Zeb could run, and Wrecker could fly.
Wrecker is flying, that's for sure. So they get back to Ord Mantell, and Sid receives Ruby for their client. And I'm still wondering who the client is that Sid is doing all these things for, because I feel like that's important, and that's something that maybe we'll talk about a little bit later when we speculate and theorize maybe what's going on there. But they just keep calling this person the client.
Yeah. It's very reminiscent of another show that we've maybe talked about in the past.
Oh my gosh, what if it was Werner Herzog?
Oh, that'd be incredible. Like, he's been doing this from Jump Street. Like,
dude
day
just
one.
Can't stop being a client.
Yeah.
And like, what if that's his name too? His client.
It's just client, comma, D.
I love it. So once they finish this mission, Wrecker and Omega, we find out, have a tradition. So it kind of seems like there's been some missions that we just have not seen. That's a good space for like any middle grade books or like young adult books or something in the future, because it seems like they've been doing missions and we just haven't seen them.
Yeah. Or good for like some like early reader type.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. And I love what their tradition is. So basically, after a mission, Wrecker and Omega sneak off from the rest of the Bad Batch, and they go to this place to get Mantel Mix. And basically, that is just a version of the popcorn that you get at Galaxy's Edge.
Yeah, it really is. It's like the rainbow colored puffy corn type thing. Yeah.
And I love that stuff. I don't like, I hate popcorn. I know that's kind of a controversial thing, but when I was at Galaxy's Edge and I had some of that stuff, I don't know what it's called, the Batu mix or something like that. It was amazing. I loved it.
Yeah. Pairs lovely with a blue milk.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. So they go off to do that. And then we see a hooded figure is watching them this entire time. And we immediately get the sense that whoever this hooded figure is, it's the same person from the end of the last episode where we speculated it could have been Darth Maul, it could have been Bell Organa, and then finally Rick Villanueva ended on Rex. And it turns out he was right.
Yeah.
So the Bad Batch get paid from Sid. They're informed about a debt, though. Sid tells them that they're in debt, and Hunter is like super confused by this. He's like, how are we in debt? And then it turns out Wrecker has just been charging the tab of Sid for Mantel Mix. They've bought over 20 cartons of this stuff, and he just says, charge it to Sid.
Yeah. I'm recalling times in my life when I have had snacks like that I've just devoted too much of my income towards purchasing for a long time. Like Krispy Kreme donuts I had for a second in college. That was pretty dangerous. But yeah. And also Sid's kind of being like an internet service provider, and there's all kinds of like hidden fees and I don't think the Bad Batch maybe read the terms and agreements.
No, this is all new for them. This world of not taking orders and like having a job, a steady job, stuff like that. This is all new for them. So yeah, Wrecker just says, put it on Sid's tab. And then we hear some sort of shootout at the bar, and they go out to see what's going on. And it turns out it's Captain Rex. Yep. He's right there, and he pulls back his hood. He's looking very Jedi.
Yeah. When I saw the for a second, when I saw the forearm gauntlet guard things, I almost was like, Obi-Wan? That doesn't check out. But it ended up being Rex.
Well, I mean, it kind of checks out this week. It's funny that you say that. There were some set pics of Ewan McGregor walking with a giant trash bag on over his Jedi robes, and everyone freaked out about that. Yeah. So, it's kind of the same thing. So they're shocked to see that it's Captain Rex. I'm sure Jonah Marie was super excited. That is like one of her favorite characters of all time. And Rex... Yeah, go ahead.
I'm a big Rex guy too. I was pumped. And like I had kind of known he was gonna show up sometime. Yeah. So it made sense that it'd be here. But yeah, I loved seeing it.
Yeah, it is so awesome. So he tells his story to the Bad Batch, what has happened to him so far. Basically, I'm assuming he recounts what happened in season 7 of the Clone Wars to them. And he says Trace and Rafa let them know where they were. So basically, Trace and Rafa, we get that confirmation. This is the same person that was in the hologram, just so we're all on the same page there. And then Rex meets Omega. And now this is interesting because Omega is named Omega because it's like she's the final clone, right?
Right.
Originally, Rex was going to be named Alpha.
As kind of the first clone.
Right. So...
And they make a ton of references in this episode to him being like, oh yeah, he's first generation, he's old, he's kind of he's an elder clone. Interesting there. Kind of got the bookends of the clone line.
Right. So like, and Rex means king in Latin too, so I mean, like, he's the first, he's the king of clones. If you want, I mean, however you want to see this or take this, Rex and Omega meeting, I think, is a bigger deal than maybe what people are. I think people are kind of overlooking that. I think there's something to this, to me. And like you said, they point out that Rex is a Generation 1 clone. That means he's one of the very first clones after Sifo Dyas ordered the clones back before Attack of the Clones. Rex is one of the first ones.
Yeah. Go for our thoughts on Sifo Dyas. Check out our Attack of the Clones breakdown.
That's right. We just finished part 4, our final part of our Attack of the Clones breakdown for our Book of Boba Fett rewatch, as we rewatch everything that has to do with Boba Fett before the Book of Boba Fett premieres. So make sure you check that out as well. As they're talking, Wrecker has a headache, and that is not good. He's been having headaches basically since like the first episode of this of this season.
We've been talking about this coming since the first Bad Batch recap we did.
Yes,
like this was brought up, so it's been seeded the whole time, pretty much.
Right. And so immediately Rex knows, okay, headaches are bad with clones, especially. And there's like a little bit of a stand down, like a showdown that's about to happen. And I love the way that Rex positions himself to protect Omega. Like, he immediately gets in front of her. And again, I just feel like there's some sort of unspoken connection between these two characters that we don't know about yet. Maybe Omega doesn't know about it, but maybe Rex does.
Yeah, just even in the way that he looks at her every time, he like knows something or is thinking about something.
Yes.
There's more here than we know at this moment.
Absolutely. Like, there is something going on with Omega, and Rex knows it. Like, whether he knows something already, he's picking up very quickly, if he doesn't already know, that Omega's special. There's something special about her.
Yeah.
And so I love that. And then they kind of talk through of like, okay, you've got to get those chips removed for anyone to be safe, especially Omega. If Omega is going to be safe, you have to get those chips removed. And then if they finally ask, okay, how do we do it? And then we cut to a scene of them in hyperspace on the Havoc Marauder, and they're heading to Braca. And this is really cool because Braca is the same planet that you start off on in Jedi Fallen Order. And that's where Cal Kestis is. And he's part of the Scrapper Guild. And he's breaking down those same starships that we see in this episode in the beginning of the game, which I think takes place maybe, I want to say probably 5 years after this. So I don't think Cal is there yet. It's possible he is, but I don't think so.
He's making his way there at this time.
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we also learn in this scene that Omega has no inhibitor chip, according to her.
Yeah, I wondered. I'm like, have we gotten any solid, basis for that fact yet? Like, do we have any hard evidence that that's the case?
Just her. Yeah.
So I mean, there's something that makes me kind of wonder. It's kind of a question mark there.
That's a scary thought to think. What if she's been tricked? What if Omega actually has an inhibitor chip and she doesn't know it? That would be scary.
Right. I mean, just like with a name like Omega, it almost like evokes like a contingency plan, or like this is like kind of the end of something. It's kind of there's a sinister element there too. So I wonder.
Oh man, I hope not, because like I think. I said Wrecker's quickly becoming my favorite. There's no doubt in my mind, my favorite character on this show is Omega. She's awesome.
Yeah.
Omega. So, yeah, she says she has no inhibitor chip, but like you said, maybe that's true. Maybe it's not. We'll see. So when they get there, and they land. Rex is there to meet them. He's got his Clone Wars armor on. It looks awesome. And they're heading towards a Jedi cruiser medical bay. And we get to see the environment of Braca. Again, I said this every Bad Batch recap. The environments on this show are incredible. If this doesn't win some sort of award, what are we even doing awards for?
Yeah. When I saw the water, like the pool of water for the first time, my jaw dropped.
Yeah.
Just that's the most realistic looking like water effect I've ever seen. That's not just, actually filmed water.
Right. Well, real quick before we move on, we do actually have a comment from the chat. Cal got there immediately after Order 66. There being Braca. They were in orbit above Braca, and that's okay. That's where the escape pod went. Ooh, thank you, Darth Revan. That was from Darth Revan.
So
interesting.
Yeah, so he could have been there already.
Interesting. And then real quick too, Rural Farm Boy says she's not a soldier, so she would not have a chip. But I don't know if that doesn't mean like they were planning on making her a soldier at one point. You know what I'm saying?
Right. The Kaminoans made her for some reason.
Yes.
I think. So
that's the point. Yeah.
So I don't, and I think there's just more questions than we have answers right now.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So that's really interesting then to think about Cal Kestis is on Braca at the same time as the Bad Batch. Interesting, because I'm assuming the next episode will start off there. So, okay. Thank you, Darth Revan. And that's not the first time I've said thank you, Darth Revan. So we learn that the Scrapper Guild patrols the area, and it's really cool because the Scrapper Guild, they're wearing the same thing that Cal wears at the beginning of the game. I love the consistency there in terms of that kind of stuff. And we get a reminder during this scene as they're walking that Omega let them know about the inhibitor chip. So like she does have some insight into what's going on with the clones. She was helping kind of the medical side of stuff. And she's the one that let them know about the chip. Now we get inside of a ship and they basically have to swing across a crevasse.
A crevasse.
So crevasse is still huge.
Mm-hmm. Very in vogue still. Very of this season.
Yes. We're just in the crevasse era for Star Wars. Wrecker is afraid to swing across because it's been well established he's afraid of heights. And so because he's also extra heavy, because he's bigger than the rest of them, when he gets on the rope, he ends up falling towards the water. And when he gets down there, there's something that reaches up for him. My question is this a Mama Core from The Mandalorian? Because it looks very similar to that.
So I was going to say, and I see Rural Farm Boy also mentioned this. I was going to say it gave me Dianoga vibes.
It did. Yes.
From the trash compactor monster from New Hope on the Death Star.
Yeah.
But maybe, I don't know.
If it is, it's a full grown one.
Yeah.
Right? Because like the Dianoga has the eye. I didn't see the reason why I'm saying the Mama Core from The Mandalorian is because it looks exactly like the Kraken from Pirates of the Caribbean, and that's what it looked like too. I was just wondering if it might be the same thing. But Dianoga, maybe it's a fully grown one. That's totally possible.
Yeah. I don't know.
So yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, so just like a Sarlacc, I saw a Sarlacc like anatomical diagram the other day, and it's an iceberg. There's more than is above the surface. So I think a Dianoga body is like that too.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't know.
So it would make sense if it was a Dianoga though, because then it's like, yeah, they live in trash, like they eat trash and stuff. That's where their environment is. That would make sense. So then they get to the medical bay. I really love this scene because it really emphasized that Omega has a lot of concern for Wrecker and the rest of them. She has a lot of empathy for a kid, and it's just really cool to see that play out on screen.
Yeah, I love that. Like, because we don't know exactly what her special clone ability is yet, like what makes her irregular or whatever, other than being female, I guess. But like basically her superpower right now is empathy. I think that's like that's her role in the group, is she's kind of reminds these soldiers, that there's like right and wrong, and to maybe try to find some compassion from time to time and everything.
And I'm not totally turned off to the idea that it might be partly because she's still like, maybe she's force sensitive. I'm not opposed to that idea at all. I'm still kind of, maybe that is the case. I don't know.
Or even some kind of like maybe force related, but like just ESP
not Jedi level
thing.
Yeah.
Yes. Like I don't know if she's gonna be like Jedi level force sensitive, but like she seemed to kind of have like some foresight stuff going on in earlier episodes. So I wonder if there's something at play there.
Yeah. So then this is the scene that we've all been dreading when Wrecker starts to go down and they're about to make him do the surgery. He snaps and the inhibitor chip turns on and he basically takes out everybody in the room until it's just Omega, and Omega has to grab his DC-17, which is a Republic Commando gun, by the way, and runs down the corridors and stuff, and Wrecker's chasing like it's Black Widow and the Hulk, and Omega hides, and eventually he gets to her, and he's about to do something that he would regret when he finally came back to. But thankfully, Rex saves the day and stuns him. And then they perform Wrecker's surgery immediately after that. And I love this scene too. Again, we get to see the empathy from Omega. She decides it doesn't matter how long it takes. She's going to stay with him by his side. And I love that. I love scenes like that.
For sure. And then, she's got the Mantell mix when he wakes up finally and everything. I just love how like such good friends they've become, so far. So yeah, it great ending to the episode.
Absolutely.
Nice little moment there.
Absolutely. So at this point, Rex is looking at his helmet. We get the sense that there's been some time since they've taken the inhibitor chip out, and we see Rex is looking at his helmet, and obviously he's remembering things that happened in the Clone Wars. We can kind of hear the Clone Wars theme through Kevin Kiner's score in this moment and stuff. And we're going to come back to this because I think he's thinking something that we speculated a few weeks ago that we need to talk about. So at this point, Wrecker wakes and he's okay. We find out he's good, he's fine, and then everyone has major brain surgery right there to get the inhibitor chips out.
Yep.
I thought it was cool the way that Tech's head was shaved on the side. He basically has like a mohawk now.
Yeah.
Thought that was cool.
As a previous Mohawk owner and probably future Mohawk owner as well, you love to see it.
You do love to see it. So at this moment, we see Wrecker apologizing to Omega. Again, love that kind of stuff. Yeah. I think it's very important to see people apologizing even in Star Wars. Like, hey, I did not mean to do that. I'm sorry. And she accepts the apology, and then she pulls out some Mantell mix, and they share some Mantell mix because they can't break tradition. Freaking love this show. It's awesome.
So good. So
it really is. It's following the same format of The Mandalorian, where Omega is Grogu, right? But instead of one den, you've got a lot of dens who are caring for this person.
Correct. Yeah. It's takes a village and all that.
Yeah. So then we switch to outside. Rex is talking to someone, and we do not hear who he is talking to, but he's talking about meeting up with them.
Yeah.
And that can kind of fly under the radar on the first watch. I didn't really think about it that much on the first watch, but on the second watch, I was like, oh, wait a second. That seems very important right there. And then we get a conversation between Hunter and Rex. And I just love those two interacting because they're very similar. And then basically Rex and Hunter agree to kind of help each other out in the future if they both need help.
Right.
And then we end the episode seeing the Scrapper Guild spotting them, and they notify the Empire, and that's where the episode ends. So let's talk about real quick after that recap. I know that was a quick recap, but let's talk about our favorite part of this episode. Mac, we'll start with you.
For me,
it was your favorite part.
It was just all the little character stuff. I loved seeing Wrecker and Omega's bond, their moments in the show or in this episode. I loved seeing Rex. And this is like kind of the most traumatized we've seen Rex. He's fresh off of the wounds of the Clone Wars, Order 66. He's just watched his entire family go to the dark side, basically.
Yeah.
And so I loved seeing him wrestle with that, and then Wrecker having to do the same thing, like they were conscious in there, even though they weren't in control, which is terrifying.
That is terrifying. It is kind of like the Hulk, right? Like Bruce Banner is conscious somewhere in there, but he doesn't control it.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, and the implications that has for Crosshair right now, he's stuck in there. So I feel like Wrecker is going to he's going to use that experience to know what it's like being in that state and be able to maybe break through to Crosshair now. Something like that might come from this, but that was my favorite stuff.
I think my favorite scene of this episode was the apology that Wrecker gives to Omega, and then they share the Mantel mix.
Yeah.
And I love the childlike attitude that Wrecker has, right? Like it's interesting. Like, it makes me think about, in terms of the clones, the way that I don't think I've ever thought about this before, but the nature versus nurture side of just that whole debate of like, okay, some things are nature-based and something are nurture-based. It makes me just wonder, like, is this a side of Jango, like in terms of like the nature of Wrecker, because he's a clone of Jango just like the rest of the clones, right? Is this a side of Jango, like maybe like he kind of killed in himself when he was a child, when he was a foundling, and then like became this bounty hunter and stuff, you know what I'm saying? Like,
right. Or I mean, maybe we haven't seen that, like maybe Jango had all these kind of moments with Boba,
right? Yeah.
And then just the trauma of losing him, made Boba lose touch with that side of himself.
Yes,
and then possibly like his experiences with Din and Grogu are kind of awakening that side of him,
right?
Again, that could be. I mean, that's interesting. That's interesting to think about for sure.
It is interesting. So that was my favorite moment. Now let's get to some questions that we have from episode 7, Battle Scars. Number 1, does Rex know something about Omega? We talked about this in the recap. It felt like to me that he did. It felt like he knows something about her that we don't know. And maybe she doesn't know either.
Yeah, I mean, maybe like in his search for Echo and stuff, he came across something, or who knows where he's been digging around, and what he has found out. But he knows something for sure. There was just a very meaningful exchange when he first kind of came in contact with her.
Yeah. Okay. So what's another question that you have, Mac, in terms of something that's just like, I wonder if this is going to happen?
I mean, who Rex was talking to, of course, is a big question mark. We might as well get into that.
Yeah. So
I have a big, who I think is a likely suspect.
Go ahead. Yeah. Who do you think he's talking to?
I think Ahsoka, right?
Okay. So if he's talking to Ahsoka, that would make almost the Ahsoka novel decanonized.
Yeah.
And that's going to make some people angry. I mean, like,
but we kind of already went there.
Yeah,
with
in
season 7.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think they're kind of prioritizing telling the story they want to tell right now,
which I think they should.
I think so too. I think the way that this is coming together is a lot more satisfying.
Yeah. Like I like the Ahsoka novel, no doubt. But I think we are getting to a place in terms of canon where if it's like, hey, I think we should go here, even though something like a comic, a book, a video game said something else, who cares? I think
Right.
it's okay. I think we should get to a point as Star Wars fans where it's okay with us if something slightly different than what we thought it was going to be. Like even in the first episode of The Bad Batch, the way that Caleb and Depa Balaba, that whole situation, it was similar to what happened in the comic, but it was different. And I'm good with that. Like as long as it's sort of the same thing, I love that, because then it's like secondary and primary sources, right? Like in terms of our real history, we get two different sides all the time.
Exactly. I'm totally good with it being that way. The galaxy is a massive place with power changing hands all the time. If we're looking at it that like we are kind of delving into galactic history when we're watching Star Wars media, you know,
right,
that would make sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm good with it. We're kind of moving into a post-canon world, I think. It's
I
like,
think that's, and I think it's good for Star Wars.
I do too, because it's they're making an effort to keep all the same themes and like general ideas there, I think, but they're not getting bogged down in details and letting that like get in the way of a good story, you know?
Right. The Darth Revan in the chat does say the Ahsoka novel doesn't say when Ahsoka and Rex split up, only that they did. That's true.
That's true.
And the Ahsoka novel takes place 1 year after the Clone Wars. So there is a little bit of space there to work in. And you know, Star Wars, they'll work in that space if they can.
Oh, yeah.
But I do feel like at this point in the episodes, I would say just like gut feeling, we're 6 months after the, after Revenge of the Sith at this point. And like by the end of season 1, I think it's going to be a year after.
Because I think we are skipping some time here and there.
Yep. So, okay. One last question I have about what's going on, especially out of this episode. What is Omega's purpose? Because she had no inhibitor chip. Rural Farm Boy pointed out in the chat, she's not a soldier, so she shouldn't have one. That is true. She's not one yet, but obviously the Kaminoans had some sort of idea of what to do with her, or maybe like she's a backup plan, a contingency, like you said earlier, something kind of ominous about her, even in her name. So what do you think her purpose is ultimately?
I honestly, at this point, just have no clue. I don't know if I know they were having kind of some issues with, like Jango's genetic material breaking down and stuff and not being able to make as many of the clones and that kind of stuff. Maybe she's like an attempt to upgrade the genetic material, maybe. And so she was like supposed to be the first kind of prototype for a new generation of army.
I think
or
so
something
too.
like that. Yeah. That's kind of what I think. Like maybe, you know, they're seeing how she develops and everything in real time before they start producing the advanced aged models, you know?
Yeah. And to me, it's like, I think you're right. She's going to be the first of the new line of clones if the Kaminoans were able to do their plan. Because obviously they don't get to do their plan. Right. And, you know, Vice Admiral Rampart gets to do the Stormtrooper program. So they don't get to do this, but it makes me wonder if she's going to be like some sort of ultimate soldier type clone, that they were like almost like a Master Chief from Halo type thing. She can do everything. She is like a one-person commando type thing.
Right. And we've seen her have tremendous aptitude with a variety of things very quickly, you know? Right. She seems to be kind of cut from some different cloth, you know?
Absolutely. Okay, so any wild speculation before we jump into the Mandalorian season 3 news and the Book of Boba Fett news and other stuff, and then take some questions from the chat? Any sort of wild speculation of what maybe might happen in episode 8 of The Bad Batch?
I don't know. It's feeling like it might be time to check in with Crosshair again. Got some doing some product placement there.
Yeah, Alex. LaCroix.
Alex holding up a LaCroix can to the camera.
Please sponsor us.
Yeah, so I don't know. Maybe we'll check back in with Crosshair or something. I truly don't really know.
I miss him.
Yeah,
I need to
I
see him again.
I had I saw some people and like Jonah Marie was talking about how I think this is kind of all the stuff that we've seen from the trailers. So it feels like kind of from here on out we're maybe in uncharted territory.
Yeah, kind of feels that way, doesn't it?
Yeah. So.
I think there's one last thing where they're in like that the version of the AT-AT before the AT-AT. That's it.
Yeah, the ATS is it? No, it's
I forget. I don't know. AAAT. I don't know.
AAT. I don't know. Who knows? It's been a long time since I've played Battlefront, the original. That's how I knew all the names of any Star Wars vehicles.
Okay, so wild speculation from me before we jump into the Mandalorian Season 3 news and the Book of Boba Fett. I think whoever Rex is talking to are more clones like Wolf and Gregor that we see in Rebels. I think what we speculated a few weeks ago with a clone rebellion, I think we're working our way towards a clone rebellion, and it's the first salvo in the rebellion. It's like I could totally see this, where it's the clones who inspired everybody else in the galaxy. Like, hey, wait, they fought back and they lost, but they fought back. Let's all fight back. Right. And that's what really starts the seeds of the rebellion across the galaxy. I could see them going that route, no doubt.
What if Caleb sees them doing something again? Like, what if Caleb comes back into the story when he's Kanan? And that's like kind of maybe a catalyst for Kanan getting.
Yeah, maybe because when he met Rex again in the Rebels, he still didn't trust them.
Right.
So maybe I don't know. We'll see. I do feel like there's some sort of climactic battle on Kamino that's going to happen. Like I feel like that's going to happen regardless if it's like the clones are doing something or not. Like whether they're active or passive, something is going to happen on Kamino. Yeah. Towards the end of this season.
Yeah, Kamino is just so integral to the clone identity. They said in the Clone Wars, like Kamino is the closest thing they have to a home planet. So, it makes sense.
All right, so we're ending this part of the Bad Batch recap early so we can talk about some major things going on with the world of the Mandalorian and the Book of Boba Fett. So don't tune out yet because this is huge stuff in that we've got to cover because like this is why we created the podcast is the Mandalorian, because we were the Mandalorian Watch previously being before Children of the Watch. So let's talk a little bit because some things happened this week in terms of news coming out. The first thing that really kind of happened that I noticed was interesting was there was this variety kind of like actor on actor interview series going on where it was Ewan McGregor and it was Pedro Pascal, and they were both talking to each other about, let's switch there. We're talking about the Mandalorian, the Book of Boba Fett. So they were both talking about like their shows. They were talking about Kenobi. They were talking about the Mandalorian. And there's like this little clip that went viral from it where Ewan McGregor asked Pedro Pascal, like basically, how's it going on season 3 of The Mandalorian? Have you shot it yet? And then Pedro Pascal said, kind of, and like, he's like looking around wondering, you can tell he's trying to think of like, what can I say and what can I not say?
He's looking at his handler for a cue or something. Yeah.
So basically he's like, we haven't shot season 3 of The Mandalorian yet. And then like, I can tell you all the secrets jokingly. So that's the first thing that kind of happened. And then I feel like the Lucasfilm PR team was like, okay, we've got to leak some things about what's going on because there's going to be a lot of speculation about what's going on. So let's talk about it real quick and I'll kind of break down the news in terms of what was going on. So let's start off by saying there were several very reputable sources that indicated a few weeks ago that Mandalorian season 3 was about to enter production or was already in production. So that's weird thing number one.
Yeah. The whole production timeline for Mandalorian season 3 has made no sense at any point. Like, are they just obscuring it to try to like drum up hype, or
No, I don't think so. No, because it's the wrong kind of hype that you want, I
yeah,
think. Of like, hey, this is going to come out much later than what you thought it was.
right?
Um,
No,
I don't.
I guess I meant like the narrative that we're getting from Lucasfilm, like not
Oh,
what's actually
the
happening,
spin,
but like
the
yeah,
spin, yeah, the
right,
spin aspect of it.
yeah,
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
no, the as far as everything that we have like heard from outside sources from Lucasfilm, it sounds like there's like trouble in paradise a little bit.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah. So okay. And yeah, we'll get to that. So basically, what some very like reputable I gotta be careful how I say that. Some very reputable people that I trust have said that either The Mandalorian season 3 was about to enter production because they have already started like props and stuff like that for the show. They were stacking them up outside studios and stuff like that. Like they were about to start shooting season 3, according to some very reputable sources. And then you have other people said, no, they were shooting some of it already. Then we get a report from Collider saying that it won't film until the end of this year, 2021, or maybe even the beginning of next year. And they kind of cite two things for that reason. Number one, they say the stage scheduling for the volume, because now they have 3, but they're all busy because you've got Kenobi using them. You've got Andor using it some. And then you've even got some of the Marvel shows now using the volume.
right.
They can't basically get the Mandalorian production in there because of the scheduling of the other shows. I'm going to stop right there and say, I don't believe that.
I don't either. Not for 1 minute.
Just build another one.
Right. The Mandalorian has been printing money for like Disney Plus and Disney in general. And like, yeah, just build another volume, or I feel like they would prioritize The Mandalorian over other shows since The Mandalorian has already been shooting in there. So yeah, it just none of that makes any sense.
Yeah, like, and then it's like Disney, just build another one right beside it. I mean, you've got the money to do it.
Right.
I know you took a hit in COVID, but not like everybody else did. So, I mean, you can build one. I don't believe that part of it. And then they cited Pedro Pascal being cast in The Last of Us, which begins filming in July. And I remember, like, I don't want to come off this way, but I remember saying, like, when he was cast, I was very worried about that because I was like, oh, like, you can't really film 2 things at one time. I know it's been done before. Like, I know that's possible. I know that, like, especially in TV shows, it doesn't take that long maybe to film as long as it does a movie and stuff. But it still worried me that, like, oh, he's cast in a major role for an HBO show. That kind of worries me a little bit. So, like, I'm not like, now hear me now. I'm not saying that Pedro, like, we have anything to worry about in terms of Pedro Pascal not being the Mandalorian anymore. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying worried in terms of it's going to be longer than what we hoped for season 3 coming out.
Yeah.
That was always my fear.
Yeah, and I'm not worried about the eventual product that we'll get with the show. Like, they're going to take the time that they need to do it right and everything. They'll do it the right way.
Yeah.
I'm just worried that we're going to have a much longer wait than we want.
Yeah, the worry is not, hey, Pedro Pascal's out. He's not Mandalorian. No. That is not the worry. The worry is just like, I love The Mandalorian. I would love to see another season of it sooner rather than later. Right. That's the worry. That's what I'm talking about there. But like, even I will say this, like, the way season 2 ended, I guess it would make sense like not to go back to that story for a little bit and like give it some space to breathe, because we even like we said this when it ended on season 2, like it felt like an ending. Like it kind of felt like the Mandalorian just ended. So what's next? So I guess it's a good thing the way that it ended for season 2.
Yeah. It to me, it kind of maybe seems like season 3 of The Mandalorian, like we've been speculating, is gonna really ramp the scale up. Like we're gonna be talking, we're gonna be getting into a lot of Mandalore stuff, potentially like a whole, effort to retake Mandalore or something like that. So maybe it's better that there's going to be some distance so that we don't go from, oh, there was just this like father son plot, very kind of ground level.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden we've gotten to like galactic scale in the scope of the show, so maybe it's good that there will be some there.
Yeah. It's going to make season 3, like when season 3 of The Mandalorian comes out, like the build up to that is going to, like, it's going to feel like a movie, right? Yeah. Because then we've had so long to wait between season 2 and season 3. When we finally get to that point of it's season 3 of The Mandalorian, I mean, we might be so excited we change our name back to The Mandalorian Watch for a season. I don't know, because like it is going to be huge. And I think you're right. I think the scope of the story for season 3 of The Mandalorian is going to be bigger than we've ever seen for Star Wars TV. I do feel like it's going to be about taking back Mandalore, and that is going to be a big thing. Like I'm speculating. This is speculation right here. Okay. For season 3 of The Mandalorian. I'm not saying this is going to happen, but this is just my way too early prediction. And we've said this before. I think season 3 of The Mandalorian is going to be the final season.
Yes.
Of The Mandalorian.
Yeah, it seems like that. Just the way that everything's going. It seems like we're building to a close.
Yeah. Like now I am curious, like we know that Din is probably going to show up in the Book of Boba Fett.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not going to say what he's doing in the Book of Boba Fett, but it seems like it's building towards season 3 of The Mandalorian. So it's like moving the timeline forward. So it seems like he's going to show up there. I could see him showing up in Ahsoka, especially if they shoot Ahsoka before they shoot season 3 of The Mandalorian. Do you think they would do season 3 and then the big team up thing that we assume is against Thrawn would happen at the end of that? Or do you think big team up thing and then the final thing would be like season 3 of The Mandalorian?
I almost think it might end up being like an Iron Man thing, where you have the first 2 Iron Man movies pre-Avengers, then you have Avengers, and then you have like, okay, we're going to deal with wrapping up kind of the aftermath. You're getting into kind of the fallout of the big team up thing. Could go that way.
I'd be okay with that.
Yeah, I mean, Mandalorian, I think, is always going to be kind of the flagship for Star Wars TV, at least for a while, Yeah. So it would make sense maybe to bookend it that way, especially if we're, again, kind of like I said, maybe we need to ramp up a little bit more gradually. So we'll be putting Din in bigger situations in some of the media to come before we get season 3 for the big finish.
I'm just curious to see how they handle season 3. I would assume, based on what happened in season 2, and then based on some other things too that I'm not going to talk about, that Pedro Pascal won't be in the helmet as much for season 3 of The Mandalorian. Because, I mean, it makes sense. I mean, the character has kind of grown out of Children of the Watch. Like, he's not in it anymore. And that's kind of why I'm hoping the Armorer comes back and the Children of the Watch, almost to be kind of like an antagonist force. I could almost see it being like, you've got Bo-Katan on one side, you've got the Armor and the Children of the Watch on the other side, and then Din in the middle.
Right.
Kind of like he's the new way.
Yeah. He has to pull everybody together to take on the Empire or, whatever. Moff Gideon, Thrawn, whatever the case may be.
Right. All right. So Mandalorian season 3 is still happening. There's nothing to worry about like on that front in terms of like people dropping out, anything like that. Don't be worried about that. It's more the worry of like, it's going to be longer than what we thought, but that's okay because we want them to do it right. We want them to get it right. We want the best performances out of people. And so it's okay to wait for something that we know is going to be good. So I'm excited about that. And it makes the way easier when we are talking about the Book of Boba Fett, because in that same article, Collider said, and this is something that I think we verbally said even back in December, like we've said this several times, that the Book of Boba Fett, it's going to be like Mandalorian season 2.5.
Right. We're on wax saying that in those words, and then it showed up.
Yeah.
In a article.
Right.
Yeah, it definitely feels that way. We're gonna have Din in there. And then, maybe we'll be getting, Fennec Shan's obviously gonna be in there.
Right.
I wouldn't be surprised if we saw even more characters that we're already familiar with show back up. Yeah, so it's definitely gonna. We'll maybe get a few more foreshadowing moments of things to come with like Thrawn or whatever the great conflict for kind of this shared TV universe or whatever.
Yeah.
So I think we'll get a lot of those things that is really going to make this feel like season 2.5 and really make it feel like we're just continuing the same story. Yeah, we're taking a little bit of a detour. We're exploring a different side of it, but it is all, still building towards the same end.
Right. Kind of like the Marvel movies, like the model that the Star Wars television shows, especially in the Mandoverse, as you're calling it, is like everything is still moving the overall story forward. Boba Fett will have his individual story in this show, but the overall story still moving forward that started in the Mandalorian with Thrawn and stuff like that you said. So, originally there was reports that the Book of Boba Fett was just going to be 4 episodes. It seems like there's going to be more though. It seems like they've kind of upped it, especially with the idea that Mandalorian season 3 is not coming as fast as we thought it would. Yeah. So maybe we're getting a little more episodes out of the Book of Boba Fett. So that's the bright side of things. We get to play in that world a little longer than maybe we thought we would.
Yeah, I'm getting more and more excited for the Book of Boba Fett.
Me too.
Like the more and more we learn about it and kind of what it's seeming to be shaping up to be, I'm very excited. I think it's going to be great. It definitely seems like it'll be kind of a tonal shift from the Mandalorian, to kind of shake things up. But then, I'm glad that it'll still feel like we're inhabiting that world that we've come to love.
Yeah, I'm super excited. And what's really cool is like Tamara Morrison is so amped about it. Like he is so excited to play Boba Fett because
he's having such a good time. Everything I've seen from him so far he just seems like he's having the time of his life.
Yeah. And that's what you love to see. Like I love to see that sort of thing of like people love to be in Star Wars and they're having the time of their lives because it's fun. Right. So that's super exciting. He kind of mentioned that Robert Rodriguez directs a few episodes and then they brought some more people in to direct other episodes. So that's why we're kind of thinking that it's more than just 4.
Right.
At this point, probably 6. We talked about this in the Discord, which you can gain access to on our Patreon by patreon.com/TheMandalorianWatch. But yeah, it seems like 6 is the model that Disney Plus really likes in terms of the amount of episodes. If we're going based off of the Marvel shows and stuff, 6 seems most likely. And so
at least for like the mini series format, that seems to be the case for sure.
Right. Because I don't think we'll get more than 1 season of the Book of Boba Fett.
No, I think it's a one-off.
And it seems like it is kind of designed to, like, the idea is that it's Mandalorian season 2.5. Like, it's like, hold on, like, this is what you're getting until everything else.
Right.
So I'm super excited about that. And then Tamara Morrison even kind of maybe confirmed flashbacks for the story.
Yeah. Which, I mean, we've been speculating that was going to be the case for a long time, you know. We've even been in our Attack of the Clones breakdowns, we've been talking about how we may even see, stuff with Boba like repainting Jango's armor green and stuff like that. It would make a lot of sense if we got some of that bridge material to get us from where we left off in the Clone Wars to Empire.
Yeah. All right, so that's what we need to talk about for Mandalorian Season 3 and the Book of Boba Fett. Now we'll take any questions from the chat if you have any. Since we kind of talked about more than just the Bad Batch, if you got any questions about Mandalorian Season 3, the Book of Boba Fett, anything, go ahead and start asking those away in the chat. But yeah, I want to say, I don't want to be like, I hope I didn't come off like as a Debbie Downer. I don't like living in my fears. I would like to live in my hopes, not my fears. But like, there's something just like, something's off about Mandalorian production. There's just something off. It doesn't mean it's bad, but something's off. We had been speculating that maybe we'd get it like around the May mark potentially of 2022. We had kind of talked about that. We had talked about it being at the end of 2022. It may be like the beginning of 2023 before we get it. I would not be surprised.
Just with kind of how it's.
I mean, it's when you think about the scheduling of these shows, you have to also consider the Marvel shows too. Like, you don't want to oversaturate the market. Right. You want to spread it out as much as you can,
especially because there's a huge overlap in those audiences.
I mean, the idea, I mean, I would think the ideal would be is you've got a Marvel show on for a season, and then you got a Star Wars show, Marvel show, Star Wars show. I mean, they could totally do Marvel and Star Wars at the same time, but then it's like, do you really want them competing against each other? Not really. Yeah. And I know that they're doing it right now with the Bad Batch. It's a little bit different with that. Because I mean, I said it as it is, more people just watch live action and don't tune into the cartoons as much as the live action stuff. Right. All right, so we got a question right here from Armando. Is the interview between Pedro Pascal and Ewan McGregor available anywhere? Yeah, you can watch the whole thing. It's a variety interview. I would just type in those two names plus variety on YouTube, and it will pop up, and you can watch the whole thing. It's a good interview. And the thing that makes me like calm and have like calm thoughts about everything is the way that Pedro talks about Star Wars. It's clear he loves Star Wars. He loves The Mandalorian. Like, there's nothing to worry about on that front. The man loves Star Wars. So it's like, that's nice to hear. Yeah. Cause Harrison Ford doesn't really,
no.
You get the sense that Adam Driver doesn't really.
No, Adam Driver really likes acting.
Yeah.
So he, that's why he liked acting in Star Wars. I don't think he has any particular love for that portion of his career.
No. All right. A question from Zachary. Do you think we will see Crosshair in the next episode of The Bad Batch? I hope so.
Yeah, I do too. It feels like time, at least for a check-in, even if he's not, redeemed and the whole, that kind of part of the arc wraps up in the next episode or anything, even if that doesn't happen, even if he just pops back in for a check-in, just to touch base, see where he's at,
Yeah.
I'd be happy with that.
I would love a whole episode just to Crosshair. I think that would be cool.
Yeah, seeing him, like how he's coping with like leading that squad and everything.
Yeah. All right, Farm Boy, here we go. Give your thoughts on why stormtroopers hit their targets as according to Obi-Wan. I'm assuming what he means is by what he says in A New Hope, that they don't miss their mark that much.
Yeah, they hit the sandcrawler treads or whatever, and he's like, only Imperial stormtroopers could be so precise. To me, I think Obi-Wan has been completely out of it and just drinking himself away in the desert. and he still thinks all the stormtroopers are clones, and he remembers how good of marksmen the clones were. That's my only explanation.
I mean, maybe we'll see in the Obi-Wan Kenobi show. At a time, stormtroopers were better than what they were in the original trilogy. Now, I mean, come on. Let's also take into consideration the Force is at work here. When the Force is at work, they're gonna miss their mark because Luke Skywalker has to save the day. What kind of movie would it be if Luke Skywalker gets shot to death by stormtroopers?
Is the Force just a metaphor for screenwriting?
Yes,
I think it is. I think it's.
Yes. All right, we got a question from Karen. What's the name of the Carpool Kids song that was used for the intro of the Mandalorian Watch? Heard it again briefly today. Thanks.
I think that was Euphoria. I think that's
I
think so. It's Euphoria, and that's on Spotify, Apple Music, all the music streaming places.
Yeah, nice. Wait, Liam brings up a good point. And treads are huge and hard to miss. That is it.
Maybe he was just really being sassy, Obi-Wan, like he likes to do. Maybe he was just being really sarcastic. I don't know.
That is true. Okay. Now that the chips are removed, do you think that the Bad Batch will lose a bit of their specialty, or what enhances them?
My prediction would be that it wouldn't necessarily have an effect on like their abilities or anything. Maybe it'll make them better. Like maybe Wrecker will get even stronger and Hunter can smell even better.
I always took it that the reason that they're special, like, is the reason that the inhibitor chips weren't working the way they weren't. So it's like, I always took it the reverse of that in terms of the reason the chips didn't work is because of the way that they're special.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Last question before we head out of here from Heather. Big fan of her. She's on the Discord too. Are you excited about returning Rogue One characters to Andor? Because we did get a lot of news about people like Saw Gerrera and possibly Orson Krennic being in Andor.
Okay. All right. I this is actually news to me. I've been very out of the loop lately. That's exciting. I could definitely see Krennic. That makes total sense. Not that maybe Andor and Krennic would be having like face-to-face confrontation, but that he would be kind of behind some of the conflict that Cassian's facing in the show. And
Heather mentioned this on the Discord. It's intentionally vague in terms of have they ever met before? Like it doesn't really say in Rogue One. You could take it either way.
Right. Yeah. But yeah, that'd be cool. And Saw makes total sense.
Yeah, I was expecting him to be in the show anyway.
Absolutely. Formation of the rebellion. You're gonna want to get into the arguments of like, Saw is more of a ends justify the means kind of person, and you're gonna have to get into the conflict of like what kind of rebellion they're trying to build, and that'll be interesting there for sure.
Yeah, like I guess I wonder, like, when does Andor take place? I'm assuming it's almost concurrent with Rebels. Like, it's happening the same time as Star Wars Rebels is.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I'm excited. Andor is weird because it's like 12 episodes. They've already announced that it's 12 episodes. I'm like that one, the production value of it's so super high. It's low key, I think it's going to shock a lot of people in terms of just how good it's going to be. And we're not talking about it a lot for what reason. I think that it's going to blow people away.
It's maybe the new show that I'm the most excited for right now. Yeah. Like, just because like of the stuff we've already kind of been getting some news about and everything, I think it's maybe going to be what I'm most excited about. Like I'm getting pumped, like, and more and more pumped as we get closer for the Book of Boba Fett and everything. But Andor, man, I'm very excited.
It's gonna be good. All right. Well, I think that has just about done it for us for this episode. I hope you guys had fun. please don't take my words as like you need to freak out about Mandalorian season 3.
All is well. All is well.
All is well. We're gonna have to wait a little longer. So any last thoughts, Mac, before we head out?
I don't think so. If you happen to be in the Birmingham, Alabama area, look for Carpool Kids shows, I guess. That's all I got to promote. So
awesome.
Cool. Well,
cool.
It was great to be back. And until next time, keep the watch.